before that, we lived in Vienna, in Baghdad, Iraq, Islamabad, Pakistan, and Tanzania.
That is quite the list, more than I can say.
Seen a few places.
And you had mentioned also that you had been working with water quality in the UN.
I retired from a group called the United Nations Development Program, and that group in the UN, it's not part of the regular UN budget, but we have about $5 billion a year to support development projects around the world. We have about 133 country offices, and I was working in those country offices, came back and did many things at UNDP headquarters, but one of them was to be director of the Global Water Program. The Global Water Program deals with ocean and coastal management, and deals with river management, deals with things like negotiating agreement between countries to share the water of the Nile River, huge river basins. And so we try to help developing countries do the kind of things that we've done, let's say with Canada in the St. Lawrence Seaway, to have a shared situation where each party gives up some of their sovereignty, gains a stable environment.
So did the perfect time. Did the General Assembly have any oversight over what you were working on at that point in time, or?
General Assembly of the UN, yes, the General Assembly has a, this is too bureaucratic I'm afraid, but it has a subcommittee called the Economic and Social Council, and the Governing Council of the United Nations Development Program is under the authority of the Economic and Social Council.
All right.
I'm not sure that they've figured out what we're doing yet, but a lot of initiatives are taken. A lot of initiatives in fisheries, a lot of fisheries management, pushing the kind of things that we're trying to do here in the Bay through the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and through the Department of Natural Resources, trying to push that each fisherman would have a quota, and if they caught that quota, then they'd have to stop it. The way to control that is difficult. They have black boxes in boats where they're tracking from satellites where they're going, and they're reporting their catches, and if one boat doesn't report anything, then you send the Coast Guard out to intervene, and we're doing some of that here. We have a natural resources police, their parking lot is over there. They go out in boats to look at these things.
And you would say that's like a pretty strict control, or, you know?
It's as strict as you can be. I don't know if you're a fisherman, but, you know, fishermen lie a lot. You know, if you have a favorite spot to fish in, you kind of, you know. So they're great people, but and I'm a fisherman, so I can say that.
There you go.
But it's hard to patrol. But so if you have a daily quota or a quota of the individual fishermen, then they have their vested interest in protecting that stock as a whole. And that's the problem. It's common property. Out in the bay, you know, where are the dividing lines? It's hard to say.
So speaking of which, the jurisdiction of the police forces, does that extend beyond state lines, or is that, you know, Maryland State Police?
They are the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Police.
Okay.
I'm sure there is a Virginia and a Delaware branch of these folks, and so they cover together the Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I mean, I would assume that the Coast Guard is involved at all, or?
I'm not sure what that relationship is. I mean, there must be one. I don't know.
Okay.
I know there are boats that I've seen that have the Department of Natural Resources on it. Actually, I worked for the Natural Resources Department as a volunteer to teach primary school children about the bay. So we give a lecture on the watershed, and it's a great program actually. It's one of the it's called the Team DNR, and one of the themes is who spoiled the bay. And we give each of the kids something that represents chicken poop or oil or picnic waste, and they all dump it into a previously clear tank of water. And they then the question is, you know, who polluted the bay? And the answer is, we did. Take that home to their families.
So speaking of the bay, from the time that you moved down here up until now, how long has that been?
5 years.
5 years. So over that time, have you seen any significant
actually, I've been
changes?
here. I was here in the 70s, so maybe that's a better spread for you. I sailed with friends in the 70s, and I remember the water being much clearer then. how does it get muddy? It gets muddy through sediments coming in from construction sites and bad runoff situations. So it has gotten worse visually. I think chemically we've gotten better. Improvement in septic tanks and pollution treatment, sewage treatment has helped. But it's kind of been up and down. And we are dependent on factors like the wind, whether the winds are coming from the south and churning up the waters, which is good because that oxygenates, or whether it's still and it's bad because then you create some of these dead zones.
Certainly. So, speaking of the dead zones, what would you say the main causation for those are, or what would you?
Well, I think nitrogen
to?
from and phosphates from sewage and from agricultural runoff.
Okay.
But that's not the worst, actually. Probably the worst thing is sedimentation, because you need, for example, for oysters, you need a hard surface to grow on, and for grasses, you need to breathe. So both for the fish and for the oysters, you need a bottom free of the kind of mud that we have.
Definitely.
So I think we need to tighten up on construction regulations, tighten up on runoff issues, have what do you call them, the forest areas which are native that can absorb some of the pollutants and the sediments.
And also with the fish, the variety, or I guess the biodiversity of the area, have you seen significant changes?
I don't claim to be an expert in that, but they claim that some of the fish, like sturgeon, are coming back, so somebody must be doing something right.
Sure.
Going back to your statement about sedimentation, what would you say the main cause of sedimentation is?
Well, you can see at a construction site, when they're stirring up the dirt and they haven't planted any grass, there's mud running off.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do have, you see plastic barriers, and if you see a construction site without plastic barriers, tell the police, because they're obliged to do it.
I think two just pulled up.
Oh, okay.
And on top of that, would you say that because of all this sedimentation and hypernitrification, there has been an environmental injustice imposed upon the local fishermen?
Well, sure, because they didn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
They can be blamed for other things. They can be blamed for overfishing and not abiding by quotas. But the sedimentation is unfair. Yes, the people upstream are hurting the people downstream.
And with the actual fishermen themselves, has this impacted like tourism in any way? Is that like on a decline due to awareness, or is this still sort of like an underground?
What I've seen, if it's tourism for fishermen, usually is after rockfish, and I've seen that go up and down. I went rock fishing last season, and we only got one for 25 people.
Wow.
But other people have gotten good luck. It's up and down with the years. I think it's hard to predict that. But clearly, if there are dead zones, and I've seen dead zones, I'm a sailor, I've been out there, and you see a big algal bloom on the surface, and it's clear that there's too much nitrogen, and the oxygen is being used up, and therefore you have those dead zones which kill the fish and everything below a certain area.
Well, hopefully that's less common, I guess, than I wouldn't want that to spread. Now, also, you mentioned youth development earlier. Could you speak more, I guess, on?
Sure. The groups like the Chesapeake Bay Foundation are always available to go out and speak. Sadly, we don't get enough invitations from groups to speak, but they will speak to any group in schools or colleges. The little group that I'm involved in goes to primary schools, and we have probably 40 volunteers who do this. We talk about the hermit, the crabs. We talk about the oysters. We talk about the watersheds, and we talk about the streams. For example, next week I'm going with a group to go into a stream up by Baltimore, and we're going to look in the stream bed, turn over, and see the macroinvertebrates, the little insects that live on the bottom of rocks. And certain ones, like mayflies, if you find them, it's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are citizen scientists, and they get all excited about this. And they say, oh, this is a good stream because we have mayflies. And So they're getting ingrained in them a little bit about what a healthy stream looks like and how important it is.
Yeah, and I mean, we have a pretty large environmental program at George Mason, which is been consistently growing. But has there been any outreach to secondary schools, higher education?
I think the Chesapeake Bay Foundation does that, and there are other groups, I'm sure. I'm not fully informed of that. But if you know schools that are in need of that instructions, it's kind of fun actually. It's a great session. You get a lot of hands-on work. Tell the Chesapeake Bay Foundation or the Department of Natural Resources, the science. They're great people,
Awesome.
and they're doing wonderful work.
Well, maybe we can arrange something for someone to come out to Mason at some point.
Good.
All right. Well,
Wow.
so
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks
so
very
much.
Good luck to you guys. You're doing a good study, and I wish you all